Wow, wow. Congratulations to Nigeria. Congratulations to Dr. Aliko Dangote. Congratulations to our President Muhammadu Buhari. I'm sure you know it's already countdown to the commissioning of Dangote refineries, the second largest refineries in the world, which is coming up on the 22nd of May 2023. I'm so excited that this kind of things is happening to us as in Nigeria. Please, I want you to share this video. I want you to like it because you know when bad news is flying, people always share it. So this is good news happening to Nigeria right now, and I want you to share it. I'm going to be showing you a video right now. I tell you that you are going to get a lot of value if you can stay to the end of this video. You are not going to waste all your time because I want to show you a video of the comprehensive discussion of Dangote refineries, but by one of our specialists, economic specialists, Mr. Kelvin. You are going to get value for this video you are about to watch. And if you are just coming across my channel, kindly turn on the notification bell right now. I'm a real estate consultant here in Lagos, and I always look for an opportunity in real estate where real estate investors can key into right now. So in this video, I will be sharing with you some strategic location where you can invest in Nigeria as an investor in real estate. You know, these refineries will open up so much development for Lagos, for Nigeria as a whole. So just turn on the notification bell because in this video I want to be showing you some strategic location where you can invest in right now. You know what? According to Lagos State Protection Agency, it is said that any commercial refineries must be 47-kilometer radius far away from residential property. So I'm going to be showing you some location far away from the Dangote refineries where you can invest in right now for massive return. Dangote refineries is going to open major investors, major business in Nigeria. And you as a real estate investor, I want to show you some strategic location. Please, you need to just own plot of land, you need to own houses if you want to be in massive return. So watch Mr. Emmanuel in this video and I'm about to show you right now. Thank you. I will be right back.
Joins us from Abuja studio. Hi, Kelvin. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I don't know if you heard some of those expectations from LCCI, a whole lot, from affecting positively, of course, the value of the naira, to reduce the pressure and need for foreign exchange, even going as far as the value chain, the cosmetics, plastics. You know, what do you see in this refinery, you know, that we're counting down and so excited about?
Well, I have very high hopes for the Dangote refinery. And the reason is because if you look at the budget of Nigeria, you see that 32.4% of the budget goes into under recovery for petroleum subsidy. Today, as we speak, over 70% of the budget, somewhere around 71.4%, if I'm not mistaken, goes for two items. Goes for subsidy payments and for debt servicing and refinancing of maturing debt. So only 28.6% of the budget in Nigeria today, as we speak, is left for any other business, which are the very critical things like defense, education, healthcare, etc. So one of the advantages of the Dangote refinery, according to sections 205, subsections 1, sections 206, subsections 2 of the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021, is that you're going to finally have free market pricing, and you're going to have regulation on transfer pricing for any company who decides they want to compete with Dangote, which I don't think they can because of the 27% handling charge on landing costs for delivering PMS in Nigeria. And it's also very interesting because, following the embargo on Russian oil before the February 24th, 2022, Russia was supplying the European Union 1.7 million barrels of crude oil on a daily basis. And following the embargo of Russian oil and the removal of Russian banks from the SWIFT global system of financial communication that has 12,000 banks as members, you have the fact that Russia can no longer deliver crude oil feedstock to refineries in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in the UK, in Germany. And that's the reason why you saw that the price of PMS went from 165 naira per litre, it went to 195 naira per litre, because the price at which the Nigerian government was able to get in PMS in Nigeria based on the DSDP arrangement actually went up. You could also see that the price of diesel went up 300% over the intervening period because those refineries in Europe that Nigerian off-takers were getting PMS from and diesel were struggling to get feedstock from Russia, which they usually get. So with the Dangote refinery, I expect that at full capacity utilization, you're going to see a daily output for PMS of somewhere around maybe 47 to 48 million liters of PMS. You're also going to see that the true north for the consumption of PMS on a daily basis, contrary to what the government reports that we consume, is actually not 66 million liters of PMS daily. I maintain my stance that Nigeria does not consume up to 50 million liters of PMS on a daily basis. And if the government has an alternate view on this, they should provide empirical evidence to back the fact that Nigeria consumes more than 50 million liters of PMS, because 8 years ago, the government was reporting 34 million liters. So how can you tell us that between 2015 and 2023, that number went up from 34 million liters to 66 million liters, and Nigeria is practically having to pay 7 trillion naira in subsidy payments, which is about 32.4% of its budget. So I expect that the refinery is going to change fiscal and monetary policy in Nigeria, because the pressure to borrow money to pay PMS subsidy in contravention of sections 45 to 49 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007 will stop. The downside, though, is that with the deregulation of petrol prices in Nigeria and introduction of free market conditions, you're going to have a situation where the price of a litre of PMS is going to go up. In sub-Saharan Africa, to interest you to note, the price of a litre of PMS is actually between $1.10 and $1.29 per litre. Now, there is a 27% handling charge for bringing PMS into Nigeria. So if you have the price go according to free market conditions and it gets to that level, you're going to see a situation where the only net benefit of the Dangote refinery coming on stream is the removal of that 27% handling charge. And of course, the central bank is not going to be providing anybody who decides to import with dollar at the official market. In fact, the central bank has started a systematic devaluation of the naira. It's revised the airline in the FX rate, for example, to 634, and is systematically devaluing the naira. And I expect that will continue, and the central bank will announce that they've changed their exchange rate regime from a fixed peg to a floating model. So there are advantages, but also I see that there are going to be some downsides to the price, the increase of price, and it's going to affect inflation. But I expect that the debt situation of Nigeria is going to improve and is going to change the direction of monetary policy going forward. Dangote refinery, I mean.
Okay, so I guess it's also important to know, is Dangote compelled to sell all his products to Nigeria? Because Dangote is obviously a business. I'm sure there are loans involved. I do know, I think they had a commercial paper or something like that recently. So are they compelled to sell all of their products to Nigeria? And how do they run this as a business? It's not a welfare company. It's a business that needs to take care of its capital and running costs, salaries, and of course, make profits.
Well, he's not compelled to sell. The fact that NNPC holds a 20% stake in the refinery and sits on the board. And NNPC has said it's going to provide crude oil feedstock that's Bonny Light through barges that we buy. To be sent through barges from the Niger Delta to Lekki. What the NNPC has not come out to say expressly in an official statement is if that crude oil feedstock will be provided to Dangote in dollars or naira. That will determine whether he's going to sell his products, all of his products in Nigeria. But it's also worth mentioning that, look, every barrel of crude oil gives you about 170 liters of derivatives. PMS is only 43% of that 170 liters, right? You have other derivatives like automotive gasoline oil, AGO, you have aviation turbine kerosene, ATK, which is used for jet engines. You also have Jet A1. So there's Jet A1, then there's ATK. You have derivatives like DPK, dual purpose kerosene. You have non-transportation fuels like heavy marine oil. You have petroleum coke, which is used to make plastics. Most of the canned drinks you take, the container is actually made from petroleum coke, which is the reason why sometimes when the climate activists come and talk about phasing out crude oil, I wonder if they understand that there are other uses of crude oil outside of carbon fuels like PMS and diesel and the likes of them. So you have a situation, for example, where most of the ships that come to Nigeria will not need to, most of the ships that are not powered by LNG, because nowadays you have ships that are powered by both heavy marine fuel and LNG. Most of them are dual hybrid powered, and they have storage on the ships. So when they come, they usually don't have any source for heavy marine oil fuel in Nigeria, so they have to use the storage they have and then sail back. Most of the ships that come to Nigeria will now have heavy marine fuel oil from the Dangote refinery to be able to transport themselves back. So it's a market for him. So you have several other derivatives. You have lubricants also. In fact, one of the reasons why lubricant price has been so expensive and has gone up. I remember in 2021 when our farm was doing land development, we were practically buying 25 kg of lubricants to power the bulldozer on a weekly basis. I remember it's about 35,000 naira for 25 kg. It's gone up seriously. With Dangote refinery coming on stream and in producing lubricants, you're going to have a situation where the prices will come down because of the cost of landing lubricants in Nigeria because of the exchange rates. So there are several other derivatives outside of just PMS, AGO, aviation fuel, Jet A1, ATK, or aviation turbine kerosene that he's going to be selling. But for PMS especially, the decision to sell PMS in Nigeria, all of it depends on if he does his cost-benefit analysis and see his foreign exchange, see the exchange rate policy that the government has, if government can float the exchange rates, he sees that it's actually going to profit his dollar loans because he has dollar loans that he has to pay. And the fact that there's been distortion in the FX market was a reason why Dangote decided to go to the debt capital markets to raise about 300 billion naira in 2022 to finish the refinery. I expect that he's going to have a right of first refusal. NNPC has a right of first refusal to get 20% of what he produces on a daily basis, especially for PMS, to Nigeria. And whatever agreements NNPC and Dangote, the board of the refinery, reaches on the remaining 80% will depend on negotiating power. But the answer to your question is he's not obligated to sell all of what it produces to Nigeria. But it's also worth mentioning that PMS is one of about 9 or 10 different derivatives that he's going to be producing. And it's also worth mentioning, I'll explain something to you that is quite unique. The Dangote refinery has a Nelson Complexity Index of 10.5, which is the second highest in the world, outside of the refinery that is owned by Reliance Industries in India. Now, the next Nelson Complexity Index typically tells you how sophisticated the refinery is and the ability of a refinery to break those hydrocarbons of the petroleum crude oil feedstock into complex derivatives. Now, you notice that for modular refineries, they're unable to produce PMS. They produce naphtha. Naphtha is the base for PMS. And the reason is because they don't have coking units that can break those hydrocarbons into secondary and tertiary derivatives. The Dangote refinery has. The fact that it means that it's going to be producing PMS, AGO, ATK, Jet A1, DPK, lubricants, petroleum coke. In fact, bitumen binders. Last year, Nigeria spent nearly 400 billion naira importing bitumen binders or asphalt, which is used for road construction. So the fact that Dangote has come on and at full capacity is going to be doing about 3.3 million liters of bitumen binders on a daily basis is going to impact on the cost of road construction per kilometer in Nigeria. And Nigeria has about 120 kilometers of roads to construct.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that in our second conversation, Kevin. But, you talked about all of these derivatives, and of course, it just gets Nigerians even more excited. But just to draw your mind back, that we do have, I know we're all excited about Dangote fertilizer also, but even when it came on stream, we still had farmers complaining about cost of fertilizer, access to fertilizer. So, I mean, how do we ensure that all of this, especially the derivatives, because a lot of eyes are on the petrol, but the derivatives that could, create jobs, take care of the roads, the lubricant and all of that, it could just be there, or it could actually be sold out, I mean, in its raw form, because of course, they also require their own processing before it can be used and add a lot of value to whatever expectations we want to have in the country.
Well, the issue with fertilizer is important for Nigerians to understand that NPK fertilizer, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium is made of 3 different components. Nigeria has only one, which is nitrogen, ammonium nitrate gas that is piped by subsea pipes from the Niger Delta all the way to its refinery in Lekki. That can only produce urea. It doesn't have phosphates and potassium. I think late last year, Dangote signed an agreement with the government of Togo about exploring phosphates in Togo as a feedstock to be able to add the second component to the 3 components. Now, globally, Morocco, the OCP Morocco has about 70% of all the production output for phosphates in the world. Yeah, and the government of Morocco has a state-owned enterprise called OCP that mines and processes phosphates for distribution. Last year, they made $12 billion. Nigeria has phosphate deposits, but like with every other thing, it's in potential, it's in rocks, it's not mined. The government is not paying attention to it. Dangote needs phosphorus, it needs potassium to be able to produce NPK. Potassium, the major producers in the world are Russia, Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine alone control about 40 to 45% of the global potassium supply, which was the reason why when the war started and the Odessa seaport and the Crimea seaport were blocked and the Black Sea, commercial ships could not navigate around the Black Sea. There were issues going through the Bosporus Channel, which takes ships from that Black Sea out into the Mediterranean. You saw that the price of fertilizer went up, and Canada controls about 35 to 40% of the global supply. So that pressure was on Canada. They could not raise their production output, and the price of fertilizer went up. So you see that with the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative that is managed by the NSIA, you see that they have problems with the cost of phosphorus and potassium, which are the 2 components for blending fertilizer. About 72 blending plants in Nigeria for fertilizer. They have problems with the exchange rate. They have problems with the cost of it that went up. And that's the reason why the price of fertilizer, for example, went up from 11,500 naira per bag to somewhere around between 30 to 32,000 naira today. I expect that if anything happens to the exchange rate further, the price will continue to go up. So we can't really say that, the Dangote fertilizer plant came on and fertilizer price has not improved, because a lot of people don't understand that the raw material for actually making fertilizer, all of it is not available in Nigeria. Nigeria only has about 30% of the raw materials.
So are we assured that these derivatives, we would get them from this refinery?
Well, yes, we are sure that we'll get the derivatives from the refinery. Because, like I said, it has a Nelson complexity index that is high, that is able to break that hydrocarbon into secondary and tertiary derivatives. So we expect to get about 9. But it's also worth mentioning that there's a difference between light crude, which is what Nigeria has, burning light, and heavy crude, which Nigeria doesn't have. the price of heavy crude is going up, and the fact is that you can actually get more derivatives from heavy crude than you can get from light crude. So I'm also looking at a situation where the board of the refinery might decide that they want to import heavy crude into Nigeria so that they can refine into secondary and more tertiary derivatives to create more value for the company. But again, my concern, because we talk about potential, we don't talk about concern. My concern is on the quality of the petrol that is refined.
Okay.
The Dangote refinery has released a statement that it's going to be producing a petrol quality that is between 93 and 95 parts per million for its octane level, which is the purest form of petrol, and has a sulfur content of 10 parts per million. And the reason why this is important, I'll tell you the reason why this is important. Nigerians realize when they travel abroad that the air is cleaner. The air is cleaner is because the fuel that is burned from internal combustion engines from their cars has a higher fuel to air ratio, and it doesn't produce nitrogen oxide as much and carbon monoxide, right? I'll dare tell you this. Most of the fuel that is imported into Nigeria under this subsidy regime will not pass environmental protection tests in Europe and in the US. If the fuel that they bring into Nigeria is sent into Europe, the governments of the EU and the US will not allow the fuel to come in because it will not pass. If standard organizations were up and running, it will take a sample from every fuel brought into Nigeria currently to a lab to test for two things. Number one, the octane level. Number two, the sulfur content. Because when the fuel to air ratio, when the fuel is higher than the air ratio, what happens is that the nitrogen oxide and the carbon monoxide you produce is higher. And what happens typically is that you have more carbon gases, and the spike of the pressure in the engine of the cars goes up, and the quality of the engines reduces over time. The car doesn't last long, which is the reason why cars last longer abroad than they last in Nigeria. My second concern is on Lagos State's Environmental Protection Agency. There is a global benchmark for how refineries are run around the world. It says commercial residential properties are not to be sited within 48-kilometer radius of a commercial refinery. I see a lot of real estate developers around Ibeju marketing properties and saying that the unique selling points.
Of course, it's even a selling point, as you noted, Kelvin. But Kelvin,
that is something the Lagos State government needs to address.
Okay, all right, Kelvin. I mean, we're totally out of time, but I mean, it's Dangote refinery we're talking about, and we know that it's just coming up. So we will see more concerns, more benefits, more costs, and more topics to discuss when it comes to this refinery. After all, it's the first in Nigeria, so we have to learn a whole lot from it. Thank you so much, Kelvin Emmanuel, our financial expert, for your time this morning.